an important question. Where did we come from? Apes, aliens, or Adam? And today we're going to unbox a giant sloth claw and compare it to a modern day sloth. We're also going to show, and I'm going to kind of give you a preview of what I'm going to be kind of a show and tell. I'm going to be showing you a Gigantopithecus, lower part of its jaw, to give you an idea of, as we talk about and explore, why were these mammals so large in prehistoric times? When did they live? And why did they get that big? That's what we're going to talk about. And we're not going to talk about it just from an evolutionary standpoint. We're going to talk about it also from a creationist standpoint. We're going to give both reasons of why they became so large. And you'll find that they do not coincide with one another. I'll give you that in a little bit. We're also going to see a giant beaver skull. We're going to look at a replica of a elephant bird egg, which could contain as much as 150 hen eggs. That's the volume that we're going to look at that came from a bird. Why were these animals so huge? That's what we're going to talk about. And then at the conclusion, we're going to unbox a giant sloth claw. All right. Want to welcome everybody. Welcome those from Texas too. We get a lot of Texans. Let me give you some background first on the giant sloth. All right. Some of this is a little bit academic, but I'll make it as interesting as possible because the subject is very, very, very exciting. The giant sloth, I overlooked it as something that we should focus on for more than 3 seconds. And it's only because of certain artifacts that I've received recently. Did I take a second look at the giant sloth and started asking questions? Questions that I have other skulls for that are larger mammals, but this one, like I say, got overlooked. The name of the creature, one of the species is I'm going to try to pronounce this, Eo, Eromotherium. Eromotherium. Eromotherium lived in southern North America, parts of Central America, and northern South America. Okay. Now I'm going to give you evolutionary times, and I'll be giving you creationist times, and I'll contextualize them. I'll label them. Okay. So we're talking about strictly the evolutionary timetable here, that when we're talking about when they lived and whatnot. So they lived around 5.3 million years ago, and up until 10,000 years ago. They've been found on every continent, I guess, except for Australia and Antarctica, I believe. Okay, so there's 150 sites around North America that these skulls and bones and whatnot have been found. All right, they've been found in Alaska as well, some of the northwestern territories of Canada. Thomas Jefferson was one of the first to identify our president in 1797, and he thought it was a giant lion, and so he named it the Megalonyx. Lonyx, I guess, has a suffix of a lion. If suffix is the right word to use, you get what I mean. So they also lived around 35. We said 5.3 million years ago in United States, 35 million years ago, according to evolution, in South America, and then they made their way up to North America about 8 million years ago, and again they died off no later than 10,000 years ago. All right. How big are they? So they give different descriptions of this. One says they are way up to 2,200 pounds, are big as an ox, you know. Others will say that they weighed up to 10,000 pounds and were 9 feet long. And when they stood up from head to tail, they were approximately, you get this, 20 feet long. 20 feet. Now, from a creationist perspective, these were created. They lived before the flood. And the fossils that we have are either, now get ready for this, are either fossils from the dead animals before the flood and or post-flood, that is after the worldwide flood, after everything was settling down, there was still post-flood flooding that took place on large scales. You know the lake on Lake Titicaca, the water that's way up, like, I don't know, what is it, 11, 14,000 feet up a mountain, an entire huge lake. Where do you think that water came from? Think it came up from underneath the mountain? Up? No. That is an example of water that was left over by the worldwide flood. As it came down, it captured it in that area, in that mountain, and it remains with here today. Some of those were in the United States and then during the Ice Age broke, and water spilled out and flooded, brought sediment, and covered large portions of the United States and killed some of these animals, many of the animals. I mean, in Texas, they find camel bones and sloths and mammoths and mastodons and more. So there's quite a bit of geological history, even from the creationist standpoint, obviously evolution as well too. Okay, so we know they're huge. And what do they eat? They eat plants, vegetation, grass, and they would also dig things up from the ground too with their big claws, and that's what we're going to see in just a little bit. Now, here's some fun facts about sloths today, and let me show you a sloth skull today. This is a replica of a ground sloth. Okay, not very large, kind of small, and they can swim 3 times faster in the water than they can move on land. I thought that was kind of an interesting tidbit. And they also, when it's mating season, the males try to push each other out of the tree. That's how they fight. And yet the sloth can fall 100 feet to the ground and not die. They've been designed in such a way that they're very, very resilient. That's a long way for a mammal to fall 100 feet. So, yep, that is our sloth. Now, real quick commercial break. This live is being sponsored by us. And this book is absolutely the best book on giantism, both plants, animals, insects, and humans on the planet. It is only sold in the digital format, and either in the description or a link that you'll see here, somewhere here, you can take a look at this, okay? And for those of you that just want to jump on and see some more of our resources, go to gianthumans.com. Otherwise, you can hit the link here. And this is a digital book. You can print it out. You've got my permission to do that. But the table of contents, guys, listen to this. Giant birds and fowl, giant sea creatures, giant insects, giant reptiles, giant mammals, giant plants, modern giants, affirm ancient giants, giant buildings and objects, giants before Noah's flood. Who were the giants? There you go. Giants against evolution. All right, now let's talk about the megafauna. That's a weird word. Doesn't megafauna sound like large plants? Fauna, like plants? But it's not. It means large animals, large mammals, primarily we're talking about here. Why were they so large? Let's show a small parade of them first. And then after we get done that, we'll give you a couple of explanations on how they got that way. And then we'll open up our box to look at the giant sloth claw. You're not going to want to miss this. And for those of you that want to skip forward when you're rewatching this on the replay, the buildup will be good. All right, here we go. Here's the parade. The parade of megafauna. What we have here is a modern day beaver skull. Okay. Now, the megafauna version of this, pre-flood / post-flood version, is this one right here. Whereas today, beavers are no more than around 3 feet-ish or so. 35 to 50 pounds. These bad boys were, and you'll see different variations of height or length and weight, but somewhere between 5 to 8 feet and anywhere between 250 to 450 pounds. This is, and of course, they'll say that these are two different species. It's a beaver. It's a beaver. All right, so that's the beaver. What else do we got? Well, what's interesting is that in ancient times, let's just say it that way, to cover both evolution and creationism, it seems like everything, and it isn't everything, but it seems like a lot of things were larger than they are today. And there's a reason for it. And I'm gonna when I share with you the evolutionary reason, can I just say this without sounding too biased? I don't think the explanation is I'm going to use the word satisfying. Okay, let me just say that this right here is a ape or gorilla mandible, lower jaw, right here to here. Okay. Now, did you know that they had 10-foot monkeys? Yes, megafauna monkey, called a gigantopithecus. That, my friends, is a gigantopithecus jaw, approximately 10 feet tall. And you'll see anything from 600 pounds to 1,200 pounds. Megafauna, the monkey. Now, if it was not just not just mammals, fuzzy type of mammals, the elephant bird lived until 1200 AD in Madagascar. There's other large birds as well too, but the elephant bird is amazing. 10 to 13 feet tall, okay? And here is a replica of its egg. That is an elephant bird egg. It's approximately 1.5 gallons to 2 gallons. And again, what made these creatures so large? And why aren't they around today? Sure, the blue whale is 100 feet long and probably one of the largest, except for maybe, the sauropods that roam the earth as well. But the blue whale is still with us today. But this is yeah. Okay, let me give you the reasons for these being so large, okay? Evolution. This is what evolution says, why the megafauna were so large. Number one, after the dinosaurs died out 66 million years ago, this gave the mammals, which were very small at the time, very small, an evolutionary advantage. Imagine all this land and all this foliage that was wiped out, right? Along with the dinosaurs. Anyways, let's say it all grew back real quickly. And we have these mammals that now are starting to evolve. And these large areas were able to allow them to populate, to roam, eat in abundance, all these groceries that they didn't have access before, they do now. And so the ability to be able to eat and roam and procreate and have all the space and the time to do it made the mammals grow larger. That was one idea. The other idea is during the Ice Age, it started to cool the earth a little bit. And in order to survive, the survival of the fittest, or the positive mutation that was triggered by the environmental pressure, and again, this is the evolutionary perspective I'm giving you. Survival of the fittest, environmental pressure kicked in, that is the coolness, then instigated or encouraged growth in order to compensate for the cooler environment. That's the evolutionary idea of why the mammals were so large. But then, and I don't have all my notes for why they became small again, but I think when you hear the creation perspective, you'll understand why they became smaller as we see them today. I don't believe they're just a species that is unrelated, like the two beaver skulls, that's just my humble opinion, based on a very short period of time for everything to take place. When you got millions and millions and millions of years, you can pretty much fill in the blanks and kind of, I'm not saying make up, but it allows for more scientific imagination to explain utilizing the mechanisms they believe to be true. And I have no problem with much of the evolutionary theory. I have no problem with the idea that a beak on a bird can grow a little bit or go back, or something can get a little larger, a little smaller based on its environment. I have no problem with that. No. But where I draw the line is that a lizard arm with scales turning into a bird with feathers and wings, that's where I don't believe that evolution goes that far. Even in micro steps, it doesn't do that. The genes are such that a dog will always be a dog. Even though it may be a chihuahua or a wolf, it'll still be a dog creature, a dog kind, as the Genesis says. Okay, now we're going to open up the claw in just a second. I'm going to give you the creationist perspective on why things got big, why these, or did they get big, or whatever. They were created originally large, or to grow large. Let me just say that. In the first place, meaning the original genetic expression of a beaver was 5 to 8 feet. That was the original beaver. It lived in what they call the antediluvian or pre-flood world, a world that was different than ours today. The environment supported giantism. The increased oxygen, instead of 21% today, it was 28 to 35% before the flood, and both evolutionists and creationists can both agree, based on the little bubble of air that they find in amber. Evolutionists just say it's ancient air from 30 million years ago. Creationists say that's ancient air from pre-flood. And they have measured the air and found it to be 28 to 35% oxygen. Not enough to hurt you, just enough to enhance everyone's life, plants, bugs, and mammals. And then the atmospheric pressure, they believe, was 1.5 to 2 times what it is today. And if you know anything about the hyperbaric chamber, do a little bit of studying, watch a short video on it. Hyperbaric chamber, when they infuse the individual with oxygen and put them under pressure, it does wonderful things. Regenerates skin. It can waken up cells in the brain that are asleep as a result of a stroke. Not the dead cells, but the ones that are dormant that don't want to come alive. Hyperbaric can make them come alive. You can actually get mobility back, your speaking back to some degree, to a greater degree, many times by doing hyperbaric and oxygen treatment. All they're doing, folks, is they're rolling back the clock 4,500 years and giving them a taste of Eden, a taste of the pre-flood world in a medical environment. So that's the reason why they were large, because they were created large, and the atmosphere and the air pressure all supported giantism before the flood. And after the flood, because it didn't, guess what? Everybody shrunk down. Humans, insects, mammals, they all shrunk for the most part. You see once in a while pockets of giantism. Like, for instance, let me see, do I have that handy here? My wife went to Peru and found horsetails, which are no more than 30 inches here, on the side of brooks and streams in the wild. Horsetails. They're just a kind of a stalk, and she found them in Peru to be, I don't know, 9, 10 feet tall. In the fossil record, they were 100 feet tall. And then she heard that down just south of Peru, they were 16, 18 feet down there. So when the environment is right, if the genes haven't been messed with, things still have that genetic capability, but it's turned off for the most part. All right. You ready? Let's do it. Let me show you what we unboxed a couple of weeks ago. This right here, my friends, is a giant sloth tooth. Now, unlike my little buddy here, which is a replica of a sloth skull, okay? This right here is real. Now, it's kind of hard to imagine where it was in the skull because we don't have a skull. Matter of fact, you can't even find skulls. You can't even find replicas of skulls of the giants. But I was able to obtain a replica of the claw of this guy and the claw of this guy. And you guys are going to love it. And it's right in this box, and we're going to open it up right now. For those of you just joining us, we're opening up a box containing in here a giant sloth claw. Okay, this is the normal size claw of today. Oh, okay, here we go. All right, let's go ahead and open up the normal size claw. This should be good. I wonder how big it is. They said it was like 2.5 inches or something like that in the promo, but seeing is one thing. Here you go. Oh, it's not very large at all. Oh, wow, look at this. Okay. This right here is a sloth claw. And this is what would be on a sloth today. All right, I'm going to set this down right next to my little sloth claw or skull. You ready for this? This right here is the giant sloth claw from a sloth that would have been upwards of 20 feet if standing up from head to tail. I don't think they had a very large tail. I think they were kind of small. So it's not like they were 1/3 tail or something like that. I don't want to damage it at all, so forgive me if this takes a few minutes. Let's see if, and just remember, things do have limitations as far as the genetic, as you might want to call it, expression of anything, including trees. And a lot of people today are thinking like Devil's Tower is a giant tree stump. That tree would be like a mile tall if it was an actual tree. Biology, does have limitations, Even humans, and I believe that humans before the worldwide flood and even afterwards, and there's evidence of it, that they were, around 12 feet tall. Oh, wow. All right, guys, you've been so patient, and I appreciate it. Here we go. Giant sloth claw, mega fauna, ladies and gentlemen. Compared to today's, and these are parallel to each other, so I'm not doing this or anything, giant sloth claw. Again, this is a replica. You can't find them for sale at all. And if you did, they would be out of this world expensive, I'm sure. This is just a claw from the giant sloth, and there you have it. So here's the giant sloth claw. Here's a giant sloth And this is a real thing. Giant sloth tooth. And now you got an idea that the world before the flood and shortly after the flood, that giantism was, I'm not going to say the rule, but there was quite a few. And again, I'm just going to do one more. The sponsor of our show is, and there you go, Giants Against Evolution. And this has all the information and lots of photos you won't find anywhere, literally anywhere. It's chock full in this book. And it's Giants Against Evolution, giant humans, giant bugs, giant tools, giant humans, everything, you name it, right there in the description. All right, guys, let me see if there's anything else. You would want to get on their bad side. You're absolutely right. Yeah, it is very different than today's size. So I'm going to show it to you one more time, and then I guess we're gonna scoot. Next week, I got another box to open. And if those of you right now want to subscribe, and then if you do, here's the key to subscribing. If you subscribe and do nothing more, I don't think you get alerted by anything. That little bell with the drop down, click on that and click the highest on there. And then when I go live, you'll be able to, there you go, you'll be able to get alerted. Next week, we are going to have a special box that we're going to open that's going to contain a machine in part that is used to create fossils within days. Fossil coal, fossil, I'll show you examples of fossil leaves, even a fossil little squid or octopus. This machine is going to, I'm going to unveil it, show it to you, talk a little bit about it, and show you coal samples that were done within a week. Coal, brown coal, and the black coal. I'll have more technical names next week for you, but that's going to be next Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All right, there's your giant sloth claw. And he is this is pre and post flood, and this is what it looks like today. Big difference. All right. Those of you who hung on this long and really dig what we're doing, that was not an intended pun. Here is our text line, 315-509-9075. This is just good for the United States and Canada. It's free. If you text in and say, hey, John, I'll say, hey, Bob, hey, Mary, welcome to the text group. We've got almost 300 people that receive a text, like when we went on live tonight. I just let my, little group, exclusive group here, know what we were doing, and they're a really great group of people. This is not a group thing where everyone's going to know what everyone's saying. It's just between me and you. And you're more than welcome to jump on board and see what it's all about. So there you go. I'm John Adolfi with the Lost World Museum, where we ask the provocative and important question: where do we come from? Apes, aliens, or Adam? And I want to thank you for taking a look at our unboxing here today and the megafauna sloth claw. Oh, man. All right. You guys have a wonderful day, evening, or morning, wherever you are in the world. We'll see you next week.